Hello, everybody. Prince Lone Wolf of Darkness here, and I thought I'd do something a little bit different for my channel. I've been always doing YTP reactions, talking about my life, but, it's time to take a different turn. More sinister turn. Yes, I'm talking about creepypasta. And, well, what better creepypasta to start off with when... I can start off with many different others, but I think I'd start off with one of a show that I kind of liked to watch when I was a kid. I mean, it's a pretty old show, and you can probably still find it on Netflix or Hulu. I think both of them, but I can't be too sure. But, I think you'll find out what show it is from the beginning of the intro, so let's get started. It's a pretty good one, too. Well written. I really like it. And if you want me to, I will leave a link in the description for you guys to read it yourselves. Everybody loves the show Codename Kids Next Door, right? A bunch of lovable kids fighting adults in gimmicky ways. What isn't to love? However, the story behind the main characters, Sector V, isn't so fun-filled. The kids were actually all based off of real children, and here I'm going to tell their stories. I'm going to keep the names disclosed, however, out of respect for the deceased. Number 5 was based off a girl who lived on the top floor of an apartment in the Philadelphia ghettos. Her mother was a drunk, and her father was a successful jazz artist, but he was never around due to all of his shows. Her mother almost always abused her in some way, whether it be locking her out in the rain/snow, burning her arm with a cigarette, or just the emotional abuse she suffered. One day it got too far. They were fighting as usual, but the girl made the mistake of slapping her mother back. Her mother got so enraged by this that she grabbed her arm and threw her across the room. While she was only aiming for the wall, she threw her daughter into the window, which shattered, causing the girl to fall 10 stories to her death. Her character acts as the mother figure of her sector, being the mother to them that she wished she had. Number 4's dad was Number 4 was based off a teen whose dad was a professional boxer. They were always sparring together, playing around, roughhousing. But one day, him and his mother were watching his dad in a championship match, the toughest fight in his career. During the fight, his opponent punched him so hard it caused major brain injuries, causing him to die a few days afterwards. Distraught, he started committing petty crimes and street fighting. During one rumble, the man he was fighting took out a switchblade and stabbed him to death. His character is the tough one of the group, and fighter taking after his dad. Number 3, well, probably the most disturbing of all. Number 3 had a happy life. Both of her parents were perfectly healthy. She went to high quality school and lived in the upper middle class neighborhood. She always wore her older brother's sweater that he gave her before he went off to college. She was the sweetest girl ever. She always visited her local SPCA and other abandoned animal centers to help care for them. Everybody loved her. She always kept a smile on her face. One day she was drawing a monkey and a rainbow on the street with chalk when she saw a dog on the other side of the street. She smiled at it and said hi, but it only stood there and growled at her. She seemed puzzled, yet she wasn't scared. She knew that some dogs were scared. She decided to go back to her drawing. The dog continued to bark and snarl viciously, so she decided to go inside. But the moment she turned around, she was gagged by an unknown man until she blacked out. When she awoke, she was in what looked like a mansion. She saw a man before her that she didn't recognize, but he was still in the shadows, and she could tell he was large and had a cigar. He came into the light, and he noticed she was naked. She was awake, and he was naked. She also realized she had no clothes on and started freaking out. The man put his cigar out and proceeded to molest the poor girl. what seemed like an eternity, he was finished with her, but she didn't want her telling anyone about him, so she murdered her slowly, ripping off her limbs one by one, he getting a sick arousal while he was doing it. When she was thoroughly dismembered, he went back to the same spot where he captured her and dropped off her bloody head on top of the drawing and sped past. Her parents came out screaming, with tears in their eyes, as they saw her dismembered head, disbodied head on top of the drawing of the monkeys and rainbows, with a weeping dog next to it. Her character is carefree and loving, but haunted by the memories of the man to this day. Number 2 is based off an obese kid who was extremely creative for a kid of his age. He was always coming up with different drawings of planes and forts and space stations. His parents was extremely proud of him, but his older sister was extremely jealous of him. He always got the attention for his drawings, and he was always the life. He was always the life of the party, cracking jokes and it couldn't have said her more. She thought she deserved the spotlight. Everything was fine before he showed up, so one day while he was sketching, she put cyanide in a piece of cake and gave it to him. While her brother was dying later that day, she couldn't help but smile at the fact that she was going to be their favorite again. But his character continued his creativity and comedy, making him the genius of the group. Number 1 was diagnosed with cancer at a young age, but shortly after his diagnosis, his parents died in a car crash. This is why he hates adults. It was a 40-year-old couple that crashed into his parents, and they only left with minor cuts and bruises. Due to this, he was left to take care of his 2 younger brothers by himself. He had always stayed strong to fight his always fight the pain of his cancer, caused his brothers to keep their heads up high. He always wore sunglasses to hide the pain, suffering, and anger in his eyes. For years he kept this up, caring for his brothers and acting strong, but eventually the cancer took hold of him. And it got to be too much. As he lay dying in an alleyway, what they called their home, his brothers were at his eyes crying. He let his first tear roll down his cheek since his parents' death, and held his brothers tight and whispered, "Good work, team." Before closing his eyes under the transparent barriers under his eyes for good, he stayed the leader through his character, always caring for his teammates as if they were his only family. Well, guys, that is a very, kind of heart-wrenching moment for what all these kids had to go through. And, I mean, it's one that's I actually find this one underrated for many different reasons. I mean, it does make a lot of sense, though, if you really think about it, that each of the characters are who they are, their personality-wise especially. I mean, even take a look at a few episodes and kind of think of this story as you watch that. I mean, it'll immediately just click in your mind. I mean, I used to watch this a lot when I was a kid, and especially when it was, on TV. And I mean, I never really thought of it until I started reading the story. Well, anyways, my next possible story, depending on how much, possibly the amount of views this one gets, is probably going to be the Ed, Edd n Eddy Purgatory theme, or the cul-de-sac. And I do have big news, guys. Speaking of views, one of my old YTP reactions is actually getting a very good amount of views, I think, in my opinion. SpongeBob hosts an orgy. This one's getting at least, I think last time I checked, it was up to about 228 views. And I mean, that's a good amount of views for me. I never really gotten that many views on one video before. And I mean, I'm gonna say this. I'm pretty proud of myself. So I mean, if this one gets a good amount of views, possibly at least a like or two, and maybe a few comments, I mean, I'll keep doing this. So, yes. Um, all I gotta say, guys, is like, comment, and subscribe. I will be possibly uploading more. I mean, again, it depends on you guys. Again, the next one is gonna be the Ed and Eddie Purgatory theme, or also known as the cul-de-sac, and I'll be seeing you guys next time. Till then, peace out.